Hi, my name is Dave. Welcome to the United Federation News Channel. The purpose of this channel is to look at current national debates in America from the perspective of our future counterparts in Star Trek. This, of course, means we were going to look at an issue. We'll use logic as we discuss it. We will refer to any pertinent data or facts, and we'll be reasonable in that discussion. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about this notion of guns. Specifically as in the relationship to murder. When we hear this issue in America today, three of the most common calls that we hear are gun control, guns kill, and gun violence. I'd like to take a look at this issue from the perspective of our future counterparts. And before we begin, I want to go on the presumption that in order to solve a problem, the first thing you need to do is identify you have one. And I maintain these notions of gun control, guns kill, and gun violence are actually preventing us from identifying the problem. So let's begin. First, let's talk about gun control. The general notion here is that we need more laws, either in terms of how we buy and sell guns or in terms of what kinds of guns will be legal. So let's first look at the logic of this argument. The argument is there's a person who commits murder, a behavior, then uses a gun to commit that murder, an object. And the argument for gun control is let's identify that object as the focus, and if we can control that object, we can reduce murder in America. If the logic is sound, it should be able to be transferred to other arguments. For instance, if I were to tell you I want to reduce smoking in America, so what I want to do is I want to control cigarette lighters. I want to make them smaller. I want them to hold less butane fluid. And I want that little flame adjustment thing not to go as high. And if we do that, we will reduce smoking in America. Does that make sense to you? Let's take a look at child pornography. People take pictures of children. That's a behavior, and they use a camera to do it. What if I were to tell you, in an effort to reduce child pornography, we're going to restrict the memory cards of all cameras, so they can't hold as many pictures. That way, the perpetrator will have to take the card out and transfer the data and then reload the card. Or let's reduce the shutter speed on cameras. That way, certain pictures can't be taken. That will reduce child pornography. Does that make sense to you? How about war? I want to reduce war on our planet. So the way I want to do that is I want to shorten the barrel lengths of all our tanks. I want to make sure that aircraft carriers can only hold 47 aircraft instead of 83 aircraft. And I think I want to make sure we don't fly as fast, so let's slow down the speed of our fighters. If we do that, we can reduce war on our planet. Does that make sense to you? To me, the logic is absolutely nonsensical. Does not transfer to any other argument. It does not bear any scrutiny, so it's unsustainable. Now let's look at some facts. First, according to the FBI, we had 11,004 people murdered with a gun in 2016. According to the ATFW, we had approximately 300 million guns in America. If you do the math, that means the current laws prevented 99.996% of the guns from killing people. That is to say, the laws are 99.996% effective. But let's take it and take a look at that 0.004%. And how did those guns get into bad hands? According to a Frontline report, the three biggest reasons for guns to get into bad people's hands, the first one is straw purchases. Now, a straw purchase is where I might go in, clear a gun check, buy a gun legally, then take that gun, report it stolen, but sell it on the black market, or maybe even just give it to a friend. The second biggest reason is what is referred to as federal firearms licenses, or FFLs. That's the same kind of a thing, only I might open up a gun dealership. sell guns legally. I have my FFL in hand. Then I can regularly have guns reported stolen and sell them on the black market. And the last reason is just gun theft. Bad people go into good people's homes and take their guns. So the notion of more laws would follow in this vein. We have some very effective laws. As such, there is an exceptionally small fractional percentage of humans who are breaking the law to murder. And the way we're going to stop them is we're going to write some other laws, because they won't break the other laws. Does that make sense to you? The fact of the matter is, we are focusing everything on the gun when it comes to gun control. The whole notion of gun control is to remove the responsibility from the person and assign it to the gun. The logic is nonsensical. The facts don't bear out there's any need to do that. Yet there is this effort to turn our heads from the murderer to the gun. Let's take a look at guns kill. In the statement, guns kill, kill is a verb, but it's being used as an intransitive verb. What that means is guns are doing the killing. They are loading themselves, they are aiming themselves, and they are pulling the trigger. It would be the same thing as if I were to say to you, lighters smoke. Forks eat. Pens write. Now we know these tools can help us achieve those tasks, but we don't blame the object. We don't assume the object can do the task. Guns kill on its surface is incorrect, it's nonsensical, yet it's an argument that's used. Let's pretend for just a moment that guns can kill, though. Let's give them that in the argument. Let's take a look at some more facts. Let's take a look at some more data. If I tell you guns kill, what do you expect to happen if we increase the number of guns? We should increase the number of murders. That stands to reason. If you take a look at the last 10 years, we see the exact opposite. We have increased annual purchases by almost double. Yet in that same 10-year period, we see the murders going down by 25%, except for the year 2016. And I can't explain what's going on there. I have some ideas, but I have no data right now, so I won't pretend. But in general terms, as the number of guns go up, the number of murders are not going up. They are going down. Maybe it's not the guns that kill. Maybe it is the person that's using the gun that's killing. Let's take a look at some other data. Here are two countries, roughly the same population. Now in Switzerland, 45% of the people own guns. In Honduras, 6% of the people own guns. If guns kill, by all accounts, Switzerland should have more murders than Honduras. Facts don't say that. Indeed, in Honduras, the rate of murder is 80 times greater than in Switzerland. If guns killed, this would not happen. This statement is factually false, and the data absolutely refutes any logic behind it. But it is another effort. What it does is it forces us to look at the gun again and away from the murderer. We're assigning responsibility to an object, and we're removing responsibility from the person who's using that object to murder. Let's take a look at gun violence. On its surface, gun violence is absolutely absurd. And let's look at this logically, as a Mr. Spock might look at it. Let's first understand, let's all agree what violence is. So here's a definition provided by the American Psychological Association. If you notice, violence is extreme aggression, extreme form of aggression. It goes on to talk about some of the causes of violence. There is the frustration involved. Perhaps the person who's committing the violence is influenced by other violence, either through the media or in the home or in their community. And this definition also points to the fact that possibly alcohol has some influence in violence. So that's the definition, and some seem to be acceptable and reasonable and expert opinions on what the causes of violence are. So let's put it to the test with an object. I'm going to spirit you away to my secret laboratory to run an experiment. I'll be right back. Hello. Sorry about my low production values, but I live in China, so I don't have a gun, which can be used to kill. I do have a knife, and this can be used to kill. So if guns can be violent, it follows that knives should be able to be violent, wouldn't you think? So according to the APA, the first thing that might lead to violence is frustration. So let's try that on our knife. This is a potato. Everyone knows knives love to cut vegetables. Let's see if we can get this knife so frustrated because it can't cut this vegetable that it becomes violent. Here we go. I don't want to get too close because if it becomes violent, I'll get hurt. But I'm feeling brave. Just be careful. Doesn't seem frustration is going to work. Well, another thing that the APA says could lead to violence is exposure to violence, either in the media or the home or the environment, the local environment. So I'm going to expose this knife to some violent media. And I warn you, this is a violent scene from an old movie from the 60s. If you're of my generation, and I'm 62, you will know this movie. But if you're young and you don't like to see bloody scenes, turn away, because this is violent. Let me remove the potato. Well, that didn't seem to work either, did it? Okay. Let's try something else, because remember what the APA says, sometimes alcohol can lead to violence. This is Chinese whiskey called baijiu. It's pretty strong. Let's get him a little drunk. There we go. Now I'm just going to get in his face. Hey, asshole. You're dull. Your mother was a pocket knife. You piece of crap. Come on. Cut it. Cut the finger. I dare you to cut the finger, you miserable piece of crap. You pathetic knife. You want to cut it? Come on, cut it. I dare you. You make me sick. I'm going to buy a slice and dice. And from now on, I'm cutting all my vegetables with slice and dice. And you, my friend, I'm going to shove you in the kitchen drawer, in the bottom, and you will rust into eternity. There's nothing you can do about it. Come on, piece of crap. Do something. You miserable piece of crap. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's go back to the studio. Well, why didn't it work? Because knives are not violent. Guns are not violent. They're not happy. They're not peaceful. They're not sanguine. They're not melancholy. They are inanimate objects. They cannot be violent. That's a fact. That's just a fact. But what the argument does, like guns kill and like gun control, it turns our attention away from the human and on to an object. It actually distracts us from talking about the human that's murdering and focuses on an object that we've already proven has no support in data, no support in logic. So there you have it. Facts and data clearly demonstrate that gun control, guns kill, and gun violence factually incorrect, statistically meaningless, and absolutely illogical. Yet there's this clear effort to turn our attention away from the person and on to the gun, to create in the gun an almost sentient being. And not just a sentient being, it's out of control. It's violent. It's a killer. It must be stopped. Like some alien invasion, we must stop the gun. So, the question becomes, why is there this effort to avoid assigning the responsibility to the human and give it to the gun? And perhaps just as important, or maybe even more important, why is there such broad support of these three arguments? So I'm going to answer that with one of two answers, and each answer pertains to a particular group of people. First, there are people who are unwilling to look at the gun. They are unwilling to assign responsibility to the human. These people have, for decades now, spent billions of dollars trying to convince whole groups of people that they are victims. And as victims, they're not responsible for their lot in life. They're not responsible for what is going on around them. There's something else to blame for it. So as such, if they were to assign the responsibility of murder to the human, they open themselves up for a very real challenge. People would say, well, if this guy is responsible for murder, aren't other people responsible for the crimes they commit? In fact, aren't all people responsible for any crime that is committed? Indeed, aren't people responsible for their actions? And that defeats their whole purpose. They need victims. Victims are votes. This group of people are absolutely unwilling to risk their votes. So they won't talk about the person. They will only talk about the gun. That brings us to this other group of people. And these people fall generally under the category of those who are unable to look beyond the barrel of a gun. Now, most of these people are the ones who have, for maybe all of their lives, heard on the mainstream media, newspapers, and conversation, they fully accept the notion of gun control, although we've just proved that that's meaningless. They fully accept this idea that guns kill. We proved that's meaningless. They fully accept the notion of gun violence. We proved that's just ridiculous. I think in their hearts, and I don't mean to belittle them, but I think in their hearts, as they see murder, it's one of two scenarios. So the first scenario is there's this madman. He's crazed. And his whole focus is, I want to destroy human life. I want to break apart families. I want to tear apart lives. I want to murder someone. They look around, they can't find a gun, and they decide they'll watch TV instead. The other scenario, the other group, is there's this madman or crazed lunatic who's exceptionally agitated. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to get through this. As he looks around, he sees a gun and says, oh, I can kill people. Yeah, that's what I'll do. In both cases, they truly believe it's the gun that forces the decision. It's the gun that decides to murder and destroy human life. These notions of gun control and guns kill and gun violence, this notion of moving responsibility away from the human onto the object, this is just a huge difference between us and our future counterparts from Star Trek. And what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit first about responsibility, to understand how they see it and how we see it. So here's a definition, just a standard definition out of the dictionary, or out of online. And you'll notice we kind of all understand that first part of the definition. It's an obligation or duty. It's my responsibility to take out the garbage. It's my responsibility to cut the grass. It's my job. But that second part where it says, or control over someone, could be yourself, control of, control over, that's significant. In the world of Star Trek, that's how they see responsibility. Responsibility is empowerment. Responsibility gives each person control over their choices, their decisions. They can not only choose the path of their life, they can make choices that progress them through that path. They are responsible to do that. That's a very great power. In fact, in the world of Star Trek, you can watch almost any episode and you will hear about self-determination. Indeed, the entire Federation is founded on what is called the Prime Directive. Self-determination of societies. Take that down to the individual. Give them the responsibility to control their actions and make choices for their lives. That's what responsibility, or that's how responsibility is seen by our future counterparts. Some of us in the 21st century here think responsibility is just a job. And what we're going to do is we're going to give that responsibility to the government, take it off your shoulders, you relax, and we're going to make society safe for you. And it's that thinking that kind of looks at maybe one of two fundamental ways to form society. You have from the top down or from the bottom up. It is those people who tend to support gun control and believe gun violence is a real thing and believe the notion guns kill is actually real. They tend to believe that there should be a government that is in control or has the responsibility of the people within the society. Our future counterparts would see just the opposite. And it's for a very practical reason. Certainly there's a political discussion to have there, who should be responsible. But practically speaking, I was born in 1955. At that time, 165 million Americans. Now we have more than 320 million Americans, effectively doubled in my life. Someone born today, if that trend continues, when they're my age, we will have around 675 million Americans. A top-down society where the responsibility for individual choices and individual decisions of its many, many citizens it goes to the top, goes to a central government. You can't manage that many decisions. The government will just simply get bigger and bigger and bigger until one of two things will happen. Either the government will collapse under its own weight, trying to handle billions of decisions, literally billions of decisions every day to make it safe for everybody. Or more likely, there'll come a point where they say, we can't do this. We're giving these folks way too many freedoms. Let's just cut the freedoms off and it'll be much easier to create a safe society. And that's called totalitarianism. Authoritarianism. That's the only two things that can happen. And our future counterparts see that. They recognize that the better approach is to instill that sense of responsibility in each individual, to self-actualize every citizen. And you get to a point where in response to a question of what is the goal of humanity, Captain Picard says, to improve themselves. That's where we should be. We can get there if we recognize that responsibility gives us the power to make those choices. And yet we struggle. We argue about this gun. I feel like we're standing around this swimming pool and there's these children drowning in the pool. And we're all arguing about the diving board. Oh, maybe it's too long. No, it's not long enough. Maybe it's too bouncy. I think it needs to be more bouncy. We can bring in some experts. We can measure some things. We can weigh some things. Let's form a committee. We'll get to the bottom of it. Then another boy jumps in the pool and drowns. Instead of talking about giving these children swimming lessons, we're talking about the damn diving board. Instead of talking about the humans who, in their demons, their only solution to their problem is to destroy human life, we're talking about the gun they use to destroy human life. And make no mistake about it, if we ban guns completely, like we banned alcohol in the 1920s, people will still get guns because people still drank. Look at London today. They got rid of guns. Their murder rate is now higher than the murder rate in New York City. Getting rid of guns won't get rid of murder. It is an ideological ploy, and we have wrapped ourselves so tightly in ideological blankets, we refuse to see reality. We are more interested in winning an argument than solving a problem. Our Star Trek counterparts would never tolerate this deliberate ignorance, this willful deceit. They recognize it prevents solving problems. They stop trying to win arguments. They just look at data, they look at facts, and they go where the data and facts and logic takes them, not where their ideological leanings want to take them. I talk a lot about this in my book. From education to business to politics, all of society. There are a lot of first steps we can take to get into this notion of our 23rd century counterparts and becoming self-actualized. And first steps are hard. And perhaps with this particular issue, it might be one of our more difficult first steps. We're dealing with people who actually believe the rhetoric. They believe the distraction. And I tell you right now, Parkland was just in line. Don't know who's next, but sometime in our future, there's going to be a dead child in the classroom with a bullet in his brain and the blood dripping all over the floor, and all we're going to do is talk about the damn gun. We need to fix these problems. You want to keep people safe? Then let's deal with the people who are making them unsafe. And until we do that, we're fooling ourselves. I believe we can get there. I would ask that we all just stay centered on facts, centered on logic. Let's try to drop our ideological blanket. Let's try to move forward as they did in the 23rd century. Indeed, solving problems is relatively a simple process. We clutter it up with our ideologies. Okay, that's it. I do want to tell you my book is for sale at Amazon.com. And thank you for listening. Bye-bye.